Hamish Kerr is the top high jumper in the entire world, and he's a Kiwi.
Quite frankly, the thought of being labelled the Olympic champion was something that kind of made me feel a wee bit sick.
Hamish opens up about everything, including the Olympic Games moment that could have ended his career.
I went over to my coach, Jimmy, who I trust with my life. I just looked him in the eyes and I just said, can I do this?
I knew Hamish had reached the pinnacle of his sport, but I had no idea that he almost threw in the towel.
I still have that small kind of feeling in me of, what happens if I've just forgotten how to jump? Do I still have it?
If you want to perform at your best, get over your nerves and your self-doubt, Hamish has some absolute gold for you.
Not only did I have what it takes to win, but also I had what it takes to go to a really, really hard place and actually get through that.
Hamish, you have an Olympic gold, a Commonwealth gold, and now you have a world title. What does it actually feel like to be the best in the world?
Oh, I'm incredibly grateful to be in the position I'm in. As a young kid, thinking about my sport and how much I love just getting outside and playing, to kind of know that 20 years down the track I would be at the top of the world in an event like high jump is something that I'm just super, super stoked with. So yeah, it's a dream come true, but also it becomes reality very quickly. And yeah, it's just the life I live now.
So your job is to jump in the air as high as possible. Do you ever think this is kind of random that I'm making a living from doing this?
Yeah, I do think it's a bit weird. And I get reminded of it all the time by my mates as well, that, jumping over sticks can be a real job. But yeah, I think for me, the ultimate goal of jumping over that bar is a body of work which represents so much more than just that. I think for me, the amount of training and the amount of time that I've dedicated my life to doing that one thing, which does kind of boil down to be quite simple, is what I really kind of feel like I think about and what I reflect on when I think about what my job is.
Do you think it looks easy to people at home?
Yeah, probably. It feels easy when I get it right. So, for those major championships where people tune in and kind of see those real highlight jumps, they do feel easy and they are really easy jumps. But I think there's a massive element of timing and technique and rhythm that gets built up over the year, which kind of clicks into place in those major events. So yeah, there's a lot of examples I could show you of jumps that don't look easy. But yeah, those ones where it does kind of all click together, it's just such an amazing feeling because yeah, it does just feel so simple.
What do people not know about the art of the high jump?
Probably I feel like probably people don't know a lot of things about the art of high jump. One thing that comes to mind is that in that takeoff moment, we put 10 times our body weight through our ankle.
Wow.
And so there's a lot of force going through your legs in that takeoff moment. So a lot of training is done to try and minimize that effect on your body and how sort of painful that is. But yeah, if you get it wrong, it definitely hurts.
Let's go back to Paris last year. You're at the Olympics, you're qualifying, you've missed the first one, you've missed the second one, you've got one more shot. What's going through your head in that moment?
Yeah, I don't like thinking about it, even nowadays. It was a very intense moment. I was world number one for the first time ever going into that competition. I was the world indoor champion. I had one of the highest jumps of anyone that year. Every competition I did, I was jumping really close to my personal best, and that was in a place where I was really confident in my ability and my jumping ability. I thought that I was a really good shot to win a medal, and yeah, I got to that qualifying round, and for a number of reasons, I didn't take it as seriously as I should have, and I kind of felt like it was something that I'd already earned with all the results that I'd had for that year leading up to it, and pretty quickly I realised that none of that actually mattered in that moment. It was all about kind of what I could do and what I could achieve in that moment. And so, yeah, first attempt at 220, I had a bad jump and just didn't clear the bar. And I went and sat down and 220 for me at that time of the season was like a starting height. Like it's just a warm-up height for me. Like I shouldn't have even been something I was worried about. And second attempt, I just, again, didn't feel like I took it seriously enough. I I didn't do all my prep that I would usually do before each jump. I just kind of looked at my coach and said, yep, I'm ready. I'm just going to go. And I hurried through the attempt. I didn't actually center myself and ground myself in all the really good work that I do mentally. And about halfway through the jump, my leg buckled a wee bit just because of the pure terror of the fact that I realized that I wasn't in the right place. And then suddenly I was thinking about the third attempt before I'd even attempted the second attempt, and I was thinking about all the scenarios around what if I don't clear this bar, and what if I get out in the qualifying round and don't progress to the final. And it was a pretty dark place. I went and sat down, and between the second attempt and third attempt, I was sitting there for probably about 10 minutes. It felt like an eternity. It was the longest 10 minutes of my life, and I actually started crying. Like I had built myself into this kind of place, this dark place where I was trying to talk myself out of that competition. I already felt like I'd finished the competition. I hadn't even attempted that last height, and I was already telling myself that maybe I just don't have what it takes.
So the voice in your head in that moment, you're sitting on the ground. What is that voice saying to you?
Maybe you are the best athlete physically in the world, and maybe you can put together this amazing program and do all these amazing things. But once you get to that moment where it really, really matters, when the stress is really on, maybe there's just not something inside you that allows you to, get through that moment. And so, yeah, it was like staring into the abyss a wee bit. And thankfully, I was able to go back to those mental skills. I got my breathing under control. I started doing some deep breathing. I did that for about 5 minutes. I brought my heart rate back down because it was going at probably 200 beats per minute at that point. It was just hammering through my chest. And I went over to my coach, Jimmy, who I trust with my life. That's the relationship that you have to have with your coach, and I truly believe that he will get me through anything. And I just looked him in the eyes and I just said, like, can I do this? I didn't ask him how. I didn't ask him what kind of technical cues I need to be doing. I just said, can I do this? And he just looked me in the eyes and said, yeah, you can.
Did you believe him?
I did, yeah. Yeah, and thankfully at that moment, I was able to clear my mind, and there's obviously technical cues that we're looking at as well. And so for him, he said, look, you're just going too fast. Just relax, allow the jump to come to you.
What was on the line for you in that moment? Not just the outcome of the Olympics or getting into the final, but what was on the line for your career?
I think my whole career was on the line. I'd been at a place where I'd worked harder than I'd ever worked before, and I was in the best shape of my life. There's so many things at play at the Olympics as well. Like, reality is that contracts are on the line and funding's on the line for the next 4 years, and all these different things that influence my decision making and my ability to do my sport were on the line. And I think genuinely, if I hadn't cleared that third attempt, I would have had to retire.
Are you aware in that moment of the noise of the thousands of people in the stands? Are you listening to the announcements coming over the loudspeaker? Can you focus on any of that, or where is your attention going?
When I'm in good shape, I am aware of all that stuff. I use that a lot with my mindfulness around trying to ground myself into my present moment. What's in the crowd, who's there, what's going around the track at the time. But in that moment, and between that second and third attempt, I wasn't aware of any of that stuff. It was a very lonely place. I was there just struggling away by myself. And it took me to go over and talk to Jimmy to realize that there were more than one person in that stadium.
So you start making your third attempt, and as you're running towards the bar, you're still kind of crying and you're emotional as you go into this attempt. What happened next?
Well, thankfully, I was, through the mental work that I did, bringing my heart rate down and being able to kind of connect back into my rhythm and my timing that I needed. I was able to clear the height. There wasn't much more to say than that. It wasn't a great attempt. It wasn't a great clearance, but I did what I needed to do. And yeah, when I hit that mat and the bar was still up, that was just such huge relief. But at the same time, the way that sport is and the nature of it all was, I cleared that bar, but I still hadn't made the final. There was still 3 or 4 jumps that I actually had to do. And so it's crazy that, I was in what was the hardest moment of my life. And I can say that with real, with legitimacy. It definitely was. But at the same time, you do it, and then pretty much straight away you're looking at the next jump, and so that moment gets kind of put aside, and the real job at hand, continues on. But yeah, once I finished that qualifying round and realized I had qualified for the final, I was the most exhausted I've ever been in my entire career. But on reflection, I look at the fact that I had to go to the abyss and I had to dig deeper than I'd ever had before to get to that jump. That ultimately was what won me the Olympics.
What do you learn when you come back from the abyss?
I learn how strong I am. I learned that all of the things that we've worked on, leading up to that moment, whether it's physical things, whether it's technical things, whether it's mental things, they all paint this picture of who I am. And in that moment, I wasn't using all of those tools. And once I started using all those tools, I was able to get past that hard moment. And so I think for me, that was the biggest win for the Olympics, was proving to myself that not only did I have what it takes to win, but also I had what it takes to go to a really, really hard place and actually get through that with all the tools that I'd worked really hard on building.
The really interesting thing about your sport is that it's an individual sport, right? So you get all the glory if you win, but you also carry all the responsibility if things go wrong. What is it like being alone when you're standing in a stadium like that and not being able to call on a team of people around you?
I think I'm never truly alone in those moments. I am the one jumping. I'm the one putting my foot down and applying all that force. But I do genuinely feel like the people who got me there are standing in behind that and supporting me. My coach Jimmy is always in the stadium with me. My family at times are there supporting me, and the relationships that I have outside of sport are things that I really feel strongly about when I am jumping. And so, yeah, I mean, it is a scary moment, but I also know that who I am as a person and the things that I do outside of my sport will still be as fulfilling as they are, regardless of the result. And so, yeah, that's what kind of gets me in those hard moments.
So you get through qualifying. A few days later, you're in the final, and as you're running towards that bar, you're not crying this time, you're actually smiling.
Yep.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think once I got through that tough moment in qualifying, I had a lot more confidence in myself and a lot more confidence in my ability, and we reviewed that performance obviously as a team, and took some really nice positive things out of it, even though it was such a hard moment. And so, yeah, going into that final, I mean, I'd done that final so many times in my career already. 12 guys, last man standing. It's a lot easier than doing a qualifying round. So yeah, to go into that and feel like I was kind of adding to the history of the event and being able to kind of take what was an amazing crowd and really get them to encourage us and get them clapping along and really kind of get that crowd going was such a special moment.
You're quite good at engaging the crowd, right? Is that something that you've always done, tried to get them to clap and participate and get energy behind you?
Yeah, I think so. High jump, we're always out there for 3 hours. And so it's a long time. You're not really doing a lot. And so you really feel like your connection to the crowd makes a massive difference. Obviously we're competing for ourselves and we're competing to for all of our own goals, whatever they may be. But at the same time, people are, paying money and turning up to watch. So we want to make a good show. And so, yeah, I feel like part of my role as an athlete and as a performer is to get those people engaged and get them to enjoy it. So yeah, it's pretty special when you've got 85,000 people watching you and really kind of responding to your prompts. So yeah.
What did it feel like when you realized that the gold was yours?
It felt quite weird. I think there was a lot of shock involved. It didn't really feel like much. But yeah, I think for me, ultimately, it was realizing my dream and probably realizing the fact that I was good enough to do that. I think for a number of years, I'd kind of looked at all the other top high jumpers and tried to sort of adapt my technique and the way that I work so that I'm more closely aligned with those guys. But being true to myself and being authentic and taking the strengths that I have and really making the most of those was ultimately what got me through that in the end. So yeah, it made me feel like I was good enough, and yeah, it was very, very special.
How did you celebrate?
Well, I was in the stadium for about 5 hours straight after, just with media and drug testing and various other things. So by the time I got out, it was about 3 a.m. So I was quite tired by that point. So I went to my family's Airbnb with my coach and a few other people, and they drank quite a bit. I was sort of just sitting in the corner shocked, just staring at my medal. But yeah, we had a great night just celebrating. And I think probably my favorite bit was we went and got just some burgers from some random takeaway shop at about 5 o'clock in the morning, and just sat there on the side of the road in Paris and had burgers. And yeah, that was probably the nicest burger I've ever had.
And that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was.
There's a thing called gold medal syndrome, which is not an actual thing, but it's the phrase they use to describe the experience that athletes have when they reach the absolute pinnacle of their sport, everything that they've dreamed of, and then they're hit by this kind of hollowness or emptiness. Was that something you experienced?
Yeah, I did. I think I was in a denial a wee bit around it. I think that the amount of time it actually took me to get over that was probably about, I would say, 4 or 5 months.
Wow.
And I think at the time, like I didn't, like it wasn't like I felt down or I felt like I was, struggling or anything, but I didn't really know what was next. And I think for me, that was such an important thing that had gotten me out of bed every morning for, 15 years was that next peak, that next thing. I was sitting at the top of that mountain and feeling like I was on this real rush and this real, there was a lot of momentum behind me, and I was wanting to climb more and more and more. And then suddenly you get to the top and you look out and there's nothing there. And so it took me a while to recognize that and understand that in order to kind of continue on, I was going to have to find that next mountain.
Are there times that you don't love your sport?
Not really. Like I think like there's definitely times where it's hard. There's times I don't necessarily want to be in a certain situation, but I think overall, it's something that I'm super lucky is I wake up most mornings feeling pretty excited about what's to come. And I think that, that there's a lot of trepidation in moments, especially when I'm overseas. And, I reflect on some years where I've, in my early career, I would go to Europe for 3 months and I'd have no one there with me. My coach, I wasn't in a position where I could bring him over with me. My girlfriend was back home and all my support team were there. And it was really tough. Like, I was so lonely and I felt quite down at kind of points. But I also knew that it was part of a bigger kind of journey. And I knew where I was trying to get to, and I could see that vision. And so, yeah, looking back on it, obviously it was really tough. But I think that it ultimately got me to where I am now.
Do you think you're a naturally resilient person, or is that something you've had to learn and cultivate over the years?
I wouldn't say I'm naturally resilient. I think, I do love giving up when things get hard.
Like most of us.
Like most of us, yeah. But I think probably one thing that I've always been able to do, and probably not to a high level, and I've had to cultivate this, but anytime I see a failure, I'm pretty good at sitting with it, sitting with that feeling and that disappointment, but then also being able to turn it around and realize that that's a great learning moment. I think of all the failures I've had in my life, and they have enabled me to learn and grow and continue on. And so I think that's probably, in terms of resilience, where I've always been quite good is just being aware of the fact that when I do fail, it's a really nice opportunity to bounce back.
You have a mental skills coach. What is that person's job?
He does a lot of work around, how I'm feeling, what's my thoughts and feelings in those tough moments and those stressful moments, and how do I operate to the best of my ability day to day as well.
Sometimes after you've cleared a jump, I've seen you tap your fingers on your forehead like this. What does that mean?
Yeah, I mean that's often credit to my mental ability. Those are usually, for me, the jumps where I feel like I've really had to outthink the problem. But also for me, those are the most satisfying jumps, because I think that you get to a level where everyone's physically gifted, everyone's amazingly talented, but the ability to kind of steel yourself and use your mental ability to the best, for that outcome is something that I love.
So let's talk about some of the tools in your toolkit. Tell me about mindfulness.
Yeah, so I use mindfulness a lot in competition. So when I feel like I'm getting really stressed and I'm starting to think about the outcome. My brain starts moving into the future. I know that for me, it's really important to come back to present and really understand where I am in space. And that gives me the ability to then break down problems. You just look at the first, the next step in front of you and then the next step in front of you, and you can break it down like that. And so how I use mindfulness for me is around my senses. So when I'm on the track, it's about trying to smell the track, and the track has a certain kind of rubbery smell to it, and so that kind of always brings me back to Mount Smart Stadium when I was a young kid, and just that feeling of turning up to the track for the first time and smelling that, and so it kind of reminds me of where I've come from. And then I use my my sight to look around in the crowd and see if anyone's wearing like any funny uniforms or like dress ups or just any of that kind of stuff. And so those are kind of two things that I use to just bring myself back to present. And then once I'm back in present and back kind of feeling like I have control over my situation again, that's when I can kind of continue on.
You're operating at a level where there are very fine margins, right? Getting from here to here might be days and days and days and days of doing the same thing and feeling like nothing's changing. So for you, when you feel like you're stuck or you're not making as much progress as you like, how do you find satisfaction and motivation in the day-to-day?
I think in those moments, it's trying to step away from being me and being Hamish the athlete, and trying to remind myself that I'm also a person as well. And so often I'll try and go for a long walk with my girlfriend, or try and get a weekend away with my family, or just do something that takes me away from that moment, and take me away from that really intense kind of visual space, and then be able to come back into it with a fresh headspace.
Some people might think, okay, now that you've reached the pinnacle of your sport, you must have nailed all this mental stuff down, no anxiety, no fear. Is that the reality?
Of course not. Yeah, I don't know. Like I think for me, I'll still always have those moments of fear, especially when I'm competing. Every time I go to a competition now, I still have that small kind of feeling in me of, what happens if I've just forgotten how to jump? Do I still have it? Do I still remember how to do it? And
wow. So those thoughts still come back even now?
every time. And so I think for me, it's just contending with those and trying to just reframe situations and reflect on all the amazing work I have done. But yeah, I don't expect those things will ever go away. It's just part of who I am.
What's your advice to someone who has a big goal in their life, but it feels massively out of reach, or people around them might be saying, look, you're just not cut out for this?
I think you're in a perfect situation. If people are telling you that you can't do it, then I think you have to lean into that and really push, because I've been told that so many times in my life, and I
Really?
feel like, yeah, absolutely. We've never had a high jumper from New Zealand, and so the natural kind of sentiment is well, if we haven't had one, then we probably never will. And I think that I've been able to flip that on its head. But I think what got me here was knowing what that goal was, and then being able to break it down. And talking to the people who you really truly value in your life, and trying to get a really good team of people around you who also kind of share that common vision. And anyone else outside of that who doesn't quite believe it, then just leave them to do them.
What would you be doing if you weren't a high jumper?
It's a good question. I don't know. I think I studied economics at uni, and I think at some point I'll probably go into maybe the corporate world or do something quite cool with my life. But yeah, for now I'm pretty happy with where I'm at, and yeah, it's a beautiful life.
Have you thought about life after sport? Have you thought about making that transition, which many athletes obviously find quite difficult to do?
Yeah, look, it's scary thinking about it, but at the same time, I think I feel excited about that as well, because I know that if I can keep my mind open and keep opportunities coming through, then hopefully something will come out of it. And yeah, I'm sure there'll be another chapter to my life.
Well, thank you for the chapters that you've shared with us today, Hamish. Your story is so inspiring, and it's been awesome to sit down and have a yarn with you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, mate.